Hi, I'm Doug Coburn. I'm one of the pastors here at Canyon Ridge, and I wanted to talk to you about how to develop an apprentice leader in your group. One of the tools that we have for you as leaders and for your apprentice is a packet. It's called the Apprentice Leader Packet, and it is to guide you through the process of developing your apprentice. And this is the first thing I want to tell you about. There's 3 sheets in this packet. The first sheet is a yellow sheet. This sheet has a whole bunch of questions for the apprentice to fill out, and it's really supposed to be not just a form to be filled out, but a guide to talk about the spiritual questions and have a conversation with your apprentice about their life and their own personal story of coming to Christ. There's a covenant at the bottom of this yellow sheet, and we want you and your apprentice to sign this covenant. It's a really great thing to read over together and agree to doing. It has a real healthy balance as a way to approach having a leader and an apprentice in a group. The second page is the salmon colored page or the pink colored page. There's a checklist on this page for your apprentice to fill out. We've developed this checklist here at Canyon Ridge to be able to make sure that all of our leaders are developed relationally. That's a really big deal for us to know that every person that's leading at Canyon Ridge knows and is connected to another leader in relationship. And that's why we have this checklist, to make sure that people are brought up well and have that solid relationship to be able to lead. The third page is the white page. This page has a bunch of information for you, the leader, to be able to use throughout the process of developing your apprentice. It's got some scripture verses on it. It's got some things that you should think about as a leader and a guide, and some talks about some character traits for the apprentice leader. This is just a really good tool for you to make yourself familiar with as you're developing your apprentice. You know, you're going to be meeting with your group on a regular basis, and your apprentice is going to be there. And it's really easy to kind of give them a passenger seat kind of view to everything. But what we want you to do as a leader who's developing an apprentice is to include your apprentice in on the developing of what you're going to do when you spend your time together. So if you prepare a lesson, then involve your apprentice in preparing that lesson. Or if you're going to go do a project together, then involve your apprentice in preparing for that project. We want to kind of include them on the behind-the-scenes kind of things that a group leader does. Very importantly, we want you to continue to model group leadership to your apprentice. You know, your example is probably the only example he or she will see for quite a while. And so, although that might kind of seem like a lot of pressure is put on you, that can be a really good thing to make sure that you're modeling group leadership, healthy practices. We want you to allow your apprentice to lead. Continue to delegate areas of responsibility to your apprentice as time goes along. Towards the beginning, as you are just developing your apprentice, they might only do 10% of the work and you do 90% of the work of the group. But as they get more comfortable as being a leader, we want them to be taking on more and more responsibility to the point where they're doing like 90% of the work and you're only doing 10%. And that is when you know that your apprentice is getting ready to lead on their own, and that's a really cool thing. Evaluating. We want you to evaluate your apprentice. They need to get really good feedback on how they're doing. But we also want you to give permission for your apprentice to evaluate you, because as they look at how you're doing things, it's going to strengthen their leadership skills, and it's going to strengthen your leadership skills as well. This is a very good thing to have a give and take evaluating between you and your apprentice. We want you to pray regularly for your apprentice. I know this kind of might seem like it should go without saying to pray for him or her, but we can't do this without God. We really need God involved in developing our leaders. And so that's why it's in this training. We want to remind you to pray on a regular basis for their personal life, for their ministry life, for their work life, every area of their life. We want to see them blessed. We would like to ask you to bring your apprentice with you when you go and do in ministry type things. If you go visit somebody in your group that's sick, or you go show up at somebody's birthday party, or you go to a leadership event here at the church, we want you to know that you can bring your apprentice to all these kinds of things. They need to be able to see you kind of doing all the things that relate to group leadership, and that includes the kind of going out things. A really good idea for you and your apprentice to do is to write down a plan on a calendar to help them be attentional in the things that they're doing. Have a schedule for when they're going to start leading the prayer, and then when they're going to start asking some questions, and when they're going to develop the lesson, things like that. Just make sure you have a calendar and a plan so that they feel like they're making progress. Because the last thing we want to happen is to have somebody agree to be an apprentice and then 2 years later still wondering if they're an apprentice or they're a leader. So it's very important to have a plan. And then lastly, we want you to encourage your apprentice to find their own apprentice as they become ready. We can never have enough apprentices in our groups because we need to be able to multiply our ministries here at Canyon Ridge, because it's the only way we're going to be able to reach the hundreds of thousands of people in our community is by having more relationally developed leaders. Now, these are just a few things for you to be able to consider as you're developing your apprentice. There's a million things that you could be doing and strengthening them. And the more you spend time with your apprentice and the more you spend time in prayer, God will reveal those things that are going to be unique to your situation that are going to be helpful in the long run.